Okay, I'll call this village board meeting for June 17th, 2019 to order, please.
Joe Zitzelberger.
Here.
Bill Randall.
Here.
Chris Zellner.
Here.
Phil Lone.
Here.
Aaron Moran. Here. Aaron Hirschberg.
Here. First thing we have is confirmation of open meeting compliance, public postings, official notices, and online availability. Caitlin?
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on June 13th. The final agenda was posted on June 13th at all 3 village posting locations, and the final agenda and meeting packet were made available online on June 13th as well.
Okay, thank you. First thing on the agenda is our consent agenda. Would anybody like anything pulled, or I'd look for a motion?
I'd like to pull 3, 5, and 6.
Okay. And then would you make a motion then to approve the
I
others?
will make a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Joe Zitzelberger,
Second.
second by Aaron Moran. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, let's, we go to number 3 right away then? Todd?
So number 3, I just have a question on.
Okay, go ahead.
That's just the temporary operator license applications, and I do know in there it says you can only do that once per year. Is that something where we're checking
Yep.
somewhere behind the scenes to make
Yes.
sure that that's?
Okay.
Okay, then I would move to approve those.
Second.
Number 3?
Yes.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Do we have any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Number 5?
For number 5, and likewise for number 6, the time, at least for number 5, the time is very vague. And for number 6, I think it says 10:30 to 11. So, do we have an actual time for number 5?
So number 5 is for the American Legion, and I believe till 1 a.m. It's on the cover sheet.
But, okay, but it's not on the actual app that we've got.
Varies times
Varies.
throughout the day. That's why we called and followed up.
Okay,
Yeah, 1
okay.
a.m. would be the latest. And then we can talk about number 6.
Yeah. And 1 a.m. is very standard for,
I think that's the same as it's been for,
Yeah.
okay. And there has not been
Years.
complaints from neighbors or concerns, anything about that hour?
Kevin?
Just a little bit of history, because I just remember because being a part of this, is that this was actually requested by the police department. Initially, the beer tents used to close down before midnight, and then there was this big parade of people that would head downtown to the bars and then cause some problems in the downtown area.
Everybody
So the
showed the
police
same.
department felt that it was better to let the music go late and actually leave the beer tent open late and then keep people concentrated in that area as opposed to getting them in the downtown area. And that was the history of
good
why it
sense.
was changed.
Okay, then I would move to approve number 5.
Motion by Joe, second by Phil. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Number 6?
Number 6, same sort of concept. I think it said, what, 9?
They wanted
10 on it?
10:30 to 11, and we just put 11 on
Okay.
the latest time they gave us for the range.
As long as everybody's, what's that?
I live right next to it, and it's not.
And you're
a
good with it?
problem. Not that, no. I haven't heard anything from my neighbors either, so.
Cool. Then I'll move to approve number 6.
Second.
Okay, motion by Joe Zitzelberger, second by Aaron Moran. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, public comment. Is there anybody here who would like to make a comment on an item that's not on the agenda for this evening?
I have one sheet of paper from Mary Heimbecker at 306 West 3rd Street. I believe this is just a correction of information.
Yeah, so it's actually to, Mary Heibecker, 306 West 3rd. It's actually to correct information I sent you in the email. I had the wrong president when it happened that Gary was nominated. It was actually Tim Nixon when he was put on the board, and not John Meyer. And I just wanted to correct the email that I sent you. I still stand by my nomination of Ann, as she was the highest vote, next vote getter.
Okay, that's good. We don't,
Okay,
thank you for that, though.
yep.
Okay? Any others?
Nope.
Okay. All right, moving on then. Presentations. Presentation regarding Greater Madison Vision Survey results and next steps from Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, CARPC. If you could just give your name and stuff.
Thank you. My name is Steve Steinhoff. I'm the agency director for the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you tonight, share the results, give a high level overview really of the results of the Greater Madison Vision Survey. I guess let's start on a personal note. Wanted to, just so exciting to me to see how much downtown Waunakee has really transformed over the years. Way back when I worked for Dane County Planning and Development, and I staffed the Better Urban Infill Development Build Program, and came out, talked with people here about the downtown, a couple, I think, different planning grants, and I'd like to think that they had something to do, some role to play in the work, but it's really been amazing. So with that, I'm gonna just, as I mentioned, this Greater Madison Vision, we held a survey, and I'm gonna result last fall, and I'm gonna share the results with you. So just as a way of a little bit of background, why is the Regional Planning Commission doing this? It's part of our charge under state statutes to prepare and adopt duty of making and adopting a master plan for the physical development of the region. All the 9 regional planning commissions in the state have this charge, and so we hadn't really done this since 1997. In fact, it was really the predecessor Dane County Regional Planning Commission that did that, so we're behind the 8 ball on that, so we wanted to get going. So the survey itself, the purpose was not only to gather information like most surveys, but it was also to really get people thinking about the possibilities of the future that we face, and also to raise awareness about developing a plan and vision for the future of the region and this initiative. So we launched the survey on September 12th, and as you'll see here, one of them, we held events all around the region, one of them including at the Waunakee High School, where students participated. You can see one of those people being the student council president. We also had good support from a lot of sponsors. Many of them were members of the Greater Madison Vision Steering Committee. It's a 48-member body. Sue Springman, who is she still on your village board?
Next agenda item.
Next agenda item. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, she's on the steering committee, and as you
Maybe
can
two
see,
now.
you could see Tom there also. He's on the steering committee. What committee isn't Tom on? So so we did a lot of promotion, not only through youth, but we did a lot of work to get participation from outside of the central Madison area to communities like Waunakee and others around the county, as well as outside of Dane County. And ultimately, we were successful in getting almost 9,200 surveys completed, about 8,700 from the 8-county area, about 8,300 from Dane County. More than 1 in 5 survey takers submitted comments, which was we felt was also a good sign. We were very overall pleased with the level of participation. So the survey itself presented 4 alternative futures, possible futures based on big areas of change, whether it's population growth and change, technology changes, environmental changes, and government, political, societal changes. And the survey walked people through those 4 futures. Each one had strategies, and people would rank order them in priority and ultimately end up with a list of 16 strategies in rank order from most to least important. People also selected a growth option, so we showed on a map 4 different options for how growth could occur and presented data that estimates different outcomes related to costs, for example, household energy and transportation costs, infrastructure costs. It had other measures like greenhouse gas emissions, how much agricultural land was developed, and others. So we felt overall we had a pretty good mix of cross-section of people who took the survey. As far as age, we were actually overrepresented by youth, and partly that was intentional because it's a survey about the longer-term future, and so youth are going to be the ones sitting at this table at the end of this planning horizon. Race pretty well for a public survey like this. 83% or 17% of the survey takers were persons of color compared to 20% of the population in Dane County. Geography, pretty well represented, good rural participation, and good outlying and so we called the first ring communities and outlying communities actually had more people participating than their share of the population, which we felt was a good sign. The areas where we had less good representation were income and education. This often happens in these kind of public surveys. It's really hard to get low income people to participate, so they were underrepresented. So I'm going to walk you quickly through sort of 8 high-level key findings from the survey. The bar charts you're looking at show how many times people selected each of these strategies for either the first top four priorities, second 4 priorities, third 4. So in this case, more renewable energy, almost 3,500 people selected it as either priority 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 16, so the top 4th. So it's just a useful way of sort of getting the overall picture for each strategy. But out of all the survey takers, when we add up the number of selections in the top quartile, the top 2 that emerge are these strategies, more renewable energy and green infrastructure. Green infrastructure, if you're not familiar with the term, is basically absorbing more rainfall or snowmelt where it falls, as opposed to letting it run off more quickly into lakes and rivers. And when you have severe stormfall events, then you get this kind of result. So, initially I was sort of surprised at the result of these 2 strategies coming out on top. But then, really when you think about it, we did have this big flooding event that happened just a few weeks before the survey and carried out through the survey. So, likely that was, in people's minds as they were taking the survey, and, that's just the way it works out. Also, I just think overall it's catching what seems to be a growing awareness, especially on youth, and since we had youth overrepresentation, of the concern over climate change in general. The next 2 strategies that came out on, when you add them all up to number 3 and number 4, were really more focused on getting better access to resources, getting better access to job opportunities through education and training. Youth identified better connect education and work way up at the top. It's not too surprising. So these are really more about meeting people's needs, and also not too surprising, these were ranked pretty much 1 and 2 by low-income people, seniors, rural people. So this is an important message to take away too. So really those 2 findings were sort of overarching findings, big challenges that we face with the environment and opportunity gaps in the region. Under those, some other important strategies emerged related to transportation and housing. Higher priority for expanding transit, primarily in the central Madison area, decreasing as you go outwards, which probably is not too surprising also, and that's where the need and the feasibility is. Housing options was more about having a broader range of housing types to meet a broader range of household needs. That was ranked particularly high, again, by seniors, rural people, low-income, communities of color. Not as high in what we call the first-ring communities. These also did not rank all that high among youth participants. Overall, the strategy of preserving more farming areas ranked not that high. I think it was number 11 or something overall, but among rural people it was number 3. So that's an important thing to sort of note. When we look at the selection of the growth options, the most number of votes fell for the conservation one, which was more about directing growth away from environmental sensitive areas, but still achieving 50% of the growth is infill redevelopment based on, that was really an extension of current trends. High votes for community and innovation, which were about meeting population issues and about adjusting to technology, and those both had more compact development, higher levels of transit. And so overall, when you add up the three votes, the sort of the interpretation that we're presenting is that people are really looking for more of a conservation-oriented approach to growth. And I'm using conservation in the broad term, beyond environmental, to include fiscal conservation, as well, and economic, better conservation of our overall resources, and those include, our taxes and our spending and as well. There are a large, I mentioned the comments, and we did analyze the comments and grouped them into categories based on what they said. And the largest category was people feeling that really you shouldn't approach these problems or these challenges as isolated, that they're really interconnected. All these strategies relate to each other, so people really felt the need for a more integrated approach to solving these. And finally, the last two, one talked a fair amount about the youth participation, in part because the largest number of people in the Waunakee zip code that participated were high school students, because the high school asked all the students to take the survey. In fact, they won the top prize. We had a youth incentive program where we offered cash prizes for generating the most number of surveys, and they won $6,000 because we had. So that was, congratulations to the Waunakee High School. And so, in general, the youth ranked more sustainability items. I mentioned the green energy and green infrastructure, but also higher priority ranking for local food and local energy production. Better connecting education and work was a high priority. And then people of all demographics selected, really expressed a desire for being better connected socially and across the region. You may see the low number of votes for that self-reliance growth option and scenario, which was really about communities needing to go it alone because of declining federal and state support, because of political dysfunction. And one of the strategy of being able to work more remotely and take care of more of your needs, from your home without having to connect better with surrounding communities, was the last, pretty much number 16, bottom of the pack for everybody. So quickly, here's the results from the Waunakee. Most of this is a screenshot at greatermadisonvision.com, and you can click on any zip code or combination of zip codes and see the different results. You can click on any of those demographics, and it'll pop up a screen that shows you how the breakdown of each of those demographics. So it's a nice little interactive feature. And you can see the 15 to 19 age group here, pretty dominant for the Waunakee participants, and that comes through, as I mentioned, better connect education and work, more local energy production, and not as high on things like transit and the housing choices. So where we go from here, I'm out making these presentations, talking to people, trying to get the word out so that you use the information. Hopefully, you'll find it useful as you do your planning, future planning work, and development decision-making. Share the results with others. If you already have initiatives that align with some of these top findings, then advocate for those policies and link them to the survey so that gets out. The Greater Madison Vision itself is working on putting together a vision statement to sort of wrap this all up as a culminating part of this. And then the Regional Planning Commission will then take, as we're in the process of taking the results as well and using those to inform update or rewrite really of the regional land use plan, going back to that original charge, that state charge we have. And finally, we're also using these results to bolster an initiative we're looking at to promote intergovernmental cooperation around a regional approach, regional planning for flood resilience. So looking at, again, focusing primarily on green infrastructure as a way to, as a volume reduction strategy, reducing the volume of the water that's going into lakes and rivers in those severe weather events. But it's it's not something that it's easy for any one unit of government to tackle, obviously, since the watersheds go beyond municipal borders. So again, that's sort of a high-level overview. In your packets, you probably saw there was a lot more detailed information, as well as on the GreaterMadisonVision.com site.
Some pretty creative high school kids, they've all got graduate degrees.
Board members, do you have any questions for Steve?
Hey, Steve, we've got infrastructure we talked about. What about transportation routes? Are roads part of, one of our dilemmas is out here is, traffic volume and, are they gonna stay on County M? Is it gonna be 2 lanes, 4 lanes around the north side of Waunakee? How does that fit into CARPC?
It really falls a little more within the MPO, and although, we're trying to work more closely with the MPO, land use and transportation should be planned together. We're actually even going to be later this year co-locating our staff in one office, and as I mentioned, the update of the regional land use plan will precede the update of the regional transportation plan, so working together. But yes, the need for better traffic management and capacity across Mendota is very clear. I would invite you to, or suggest maybe that you invite Bill Schaefer from the MPO to come and talk about that.
I would just ask, from the public's view, this survey, is there a way that we can link it to our website so people have easier access to it? I'm asking.
I can work on that.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very
again.
much.
One other question.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
Not that it would change how we would handle this information, but do you have anything on how we compare to maybe the Milwaukee area or?
Well, we didn't, it's an 8-county region, so we didn't do Milwaukee area. But,
Well, I mean, capital versus,
yeah,
whatever other,
yes, we have that information. I could get that to you.
that would be fantastic. Or if it's online, I can,
We prepared actually and I should have brought copies, I apologize. We actually prepared community fact sheets, survey fact sheets that,
fantastic.
and I'll email that to Todd and Caitlin, and she can distribute,
Yeah,
they
that'd
can
be
distribute it.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, one thing before you move on that I missed under the comments, I wanted to introduce a new staff member to the board. Kylie West is the new executive assistant
Hello.
at Village Hall. She's a Waunakee resident. She came back after her first week, which is a good sign in general. But you'll be hearing a lot from Kylie as we work to coordinate special meetings or touch bases with myself. She'll be helping schedule and coordinate things for all of us. So if I'm not available and you need something, you're welcome to connect with Kylie. She also serves the clerk's department.
Thank you. I'll apologize because usually I ask you if you have anything, so
You do.
it
That's
was my
okay.
fault.
I just wanted to get Kylie off the hook so she could go home and do more fun things.
In a board meeting? No. Okay.
Sometimes.
Thank you. All right, next we have license and permits. Discuss and take action on annual operator license applications. Caitlin?
Those are the second round of our annual approval of these operator licenses. This is a mix, these are 8 people who we didn't get around to adding to our agenda last meeting, and we did probably 150 some of them. So these are recommended for approval, subject to successful completion of responsible beverage server training course and approval by the police department.
Okay, do we have a motion or?
I make a motion, we approve the operator license applications for all applicants listed on the attached roster, subject to successful completion of an approved responsible beverage server training course.
Okay, motion by Phil Willems. Second by Bill Random. Any other comments? Call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Next, we have discuss and take action on contract for consulting services with Ayers Associates for the facilitation of public listening session relating to public aquatics facilities. Are you talking? Well, thank you for allowing that. So, the parks, well, actually, the parks chair, do you want to take it, or should I?
Well, I'd like to throw this over to Chris, no. But we, in our surveys that were taken, this was very high on the list of things that people wanted us to explore. The time's right. We've tried it before. I think the chairperson of the first attempt is in the room, and I don't think the time was right then, but I think the time is probably right now, and the public seems to like it, so. Chris and I met with Sue, and we want to
Also-
move forward.
Yeah, we met, and then we had our parks meeting, and unanimous, I think it was unanimous, pretty sure it was unanimous to move forward with a listening session, at least for the start, to see what the public really wants to have, whether it be small to large to nothing. We might find any of those things out, so. Go ahead.
So we just confirmed the date of the meeting today. So it will be on Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m., actually in the new library community room. Approximately an hour and a half long is what we're scheduling. And truly, it is a listening session, and we'll be the ones that are listening. So we are inviting the community to come in and talk to us about aquatics in the village. We have hired a consulting firm who's going to come in and talk a little bit about the spectrum of options that would be available for community aquatics. So that could range from spray park, think City of Middleton, Allen Boulevard, to a small community pool, to something a little bit larger, all the way to something that might be a draw for people from other communities. So all along that spectrum, our consultant will be able to share with us information in general about amount of space you would need for all of those different sizes of facilities, the cost to construct, and also just some basic ballpark information about the cost to manage. Once he shares that kind of broad-based information, then we are going to be listening to the people that are attending the meeting to hear what their thoughts are about all of those different options, and then really forge a next step after that. So again, Tuesday, August 20th, 7 p.m. at the new library's community room.
Okay, so, do we need to make a do we have to make a motion on this?
Based on the meeting of the Parks Committee, I'd like to follow their lead and recommend we approve the contract for consulting services with Ayers Associates for the facilitation of a public listening session regarding the public aquatic facilities.
Okay, motion by Phil Willems,
Second.
second by Joe Ritzelberger. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, next we have discuss and take action on village trustee vacancy. So the community, I think, is aware, I know it was posted by Roberta on the Tribune site as well, that trustee Springman resigned. And we need to make a decision tonight in regards to how we're going to fill that vacancy. We've done it different ways in the history of the village, so we can, debate a little bit here. I'm gonna make what I think is the right way to proceed on this. But we have to decide as a group on how we want to proceed. So In the past, the last time we had this actually situation come up, it was for trustee Ballwig, where we opened it up and we took applications for that seat. And Phil and I interviewed the different candidates that had submitted for it, and Sam was who was chosen for it. The previous time to that was for former President Lobmeyer, when he became trustee. We needed to appoint somebody, and that was Dr. Ranum. At that time, that was just me reaching out to several people in the community. You were one of them, so you were involved obviously firsthand. And I made the recommendation to the board, and we appointed that direction for it. So that's two options that we've had in the past. There's other communities that have looked at who is the next vote getter from the previous election, which we could look at. We could leave the seat open till next election. We can appoint somebody for next 12 months or till the next election, and then we have an option that we could appoint somebody for the full term to carry out Sue's. So those, did I miss anything in there, Brian, or is that pretty much?
I mean, there may be a few other things, but I think you hit the high points. I think it really boils down to the village board has a lot of discretion as to how it wants to proceed.
So the ones I think I want to address first are, do we want to keep this open for this foreseeable future? Is
The seat
anybody,
open?
the seat open, is anybody in favor of that? Okay, I didn't think we'd have anybody, but you didn't make any, you didn't actually have any knowledge.
There's room for me here.
You actually shrunk. You don't need that room, within
All
that.
out here and quiet.
So that kind of takes out two of the choices that we have, right there. Next, we have, what I'm in favor of doing is the same as the last time, but a little bit of a wrinkle to it. There's several people in the community that I have spoken with in the past, and I'm currently speaking with about being trustees. And they have interest in this. I would like to have the opportunity to speak with them before our next board meeting, and if that's the situation, then I would make an appointment to you. If I don't have those people with interest, then we would open it up to an application process for people. That's my feelings. That's where I'm at right now with this. So the rest of you need to weigh in.
Last time you opened it up for applications, roughly how many did you get?
I think we had a handful that applied. I think we interviewed 3 for sure. Was it 3 or 4?
We had more, but we got it down to 4 that we interviewed.
Yeah.
And the first lady that was our choice turned it down.
Well, she turned it down for, she had a conflict of interest with her job. That's the reason. It wasn't that she didn't want to do it. She didn't have a choice.
But, yeah, so.
So I don't know if that answers.
So that was in. No, so.
Gary?
I mean, I was appointed to the board, my election in, whenever, 2004, whenever that was, 2002, whatever. But again, it was up to the village president to make that decision. So I think at that time, I was the next vote getter, but I was also on a lot of, I think at a couple committees at that time, and had a pretty good relationship with, the board and the president at that time. So, I've always looked at this as like the board president has an opportunity to pick his team. If there's a opening, at least in the past, we'd always look to the president to say, what are your thoughts? You make a recommendation to us, and, we'll probably vote to approve that based on logical decisions, but, that's what I've seen in the past.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you a little bit on that, or differ
Okay.
from what you're saying. I don't look at it as the president appointing his team. I look at it as the president as appointing to who the best representative for the village of Waunakee would be. That's who I look at, not to my team. I think it's who I believe is gonna do their, what I believe is what Sue would have actually done. She was the winner of the election last time. Not the, I don't know if she was first, second, or third, but I believe she was second, maybe first even. I don't remember right now. So she had a lot of votes, and trying to find somebody that's similar to her, and her beliefs is important, I believe, as part of one of the criteria, at least that I'm using. Joe?
Is there a concern that if we were to open it up to applications or whatever, that the people that you have in mind or that you have an interest in would potentially not apply, or that there would be any sort of unfairness to them, or?
I don't believe so. I mean, again, it's more a matter of taking the time to do it. We didn't have like all kinds of time here to
Sure,
make
yeah,
this decision.
yeah.
There has been some inferences online, which is disappointing, that Ms. Springman ran only to prevent others from winning, and I'm gonna dispel that very quickly, and that is absolutely false. And she's a good person. She's served our community very well for a lot of years. As you heard, she's been on multiple committees, CARPC and all other things. So to infer that she was doing something for that reason is absolutely false, and disappointing to me that people would post that. But again, Facebook doesn't always have correct answers, so that's. Aaron, how do you feel?
One more question. When the board has previously appointed people, were those contested elections that the seat was in? That makes sense?
Were there challengers, is that?
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good question. I don't. So the last one filled was for,
I see.
Sam?
You're asking a guy that always was outvoted by Sue. Always got more votes than me. As she should have.
I'm thinking of Sam when we.
I do not think there was a person that had lost the election at that time. I think that there was uncontested seats.
Yeah, I don't, I'm just trying to think right now. Back to Gary.
Walden.
Yep.
What's that?
Yeah, what was
It
it?
was Gary Walden that
That we were
Sam replaced.
Yes.
Oh, it was me, I think, that replaced, I still have his card, my
You
card.
replaced John.
Oh, why have a Gary Walden tag?
You're right.
I guess that
I
would
don't know the answer to that.
impact my reliance on the precedent that's been set, if there hadn't been people running.
Okay. Phil?
I could go almost any way. When I was running for what I announced was my last term on the board, a couple of people were going to, and they decided not to because they would, as a favor to me, because they would probably outvoted me.
So where do you feel on this, though?
I-
I'm trying to get all your input so I can,
I could
Make
go
a
either way. I know that there's some talk of appointing a person on the ballot the last time. And that's a possibility, but there's also the option that the village president always has of appointing a person that he thinks would work well with his plans and with the previous seat holder. So, I can go either way.
Mine is, I think she knew stuff about the development stuff that I certainly didn't know, and I learned a lot from that. So I would kinda lean to somebody, and she obviously, the community voted for that, and I kind of see that as a piece we might be missing right now if we don't try to find somebody that knows that stuff. I mean, as far as development goes.
okay? So we have option to go with one of the people that was first, second, third
All
in the
three.
election. We could go with the first person. We can go with me appointing somebody to you for the next meeting, which could be one of those people potentially.
Right,
It could
That's
be,
why I
we open it
can't-
up to applications, the following.
and to me, it's like, can you do both things? Can you sort of survey and the people that would be similar to what Sue knew, and at the same have applications to the site, or is that gonna be too many people?
Well, the only track record I really have is you, as far as appointing them.
Yeah.
So you're kind of a unique you think,
And I think I was just set in to fill in a niche, right? I mean, it was there. So that's why I see Sue as sort of a niche that I don't see anywhere else here on our board. I mean, maybe Joe knows more of it,
Joe's more like me, you know, in the same field, so.
yeah.
Joe knows more than me, he's in a similar field, that's why I just said.
As far as somebody who came from that, you know, that side of the world, the development side, developer side.
Okay. Joe, any other comments? All right, so you guys were not huge help
Not
for me
that
there,
huge help.
but what I'm gonna recommend is, as I stated right off the bat, you guys will have to vote to do this. I'd like to have a few people that I look at, appoint next meeting, potentially. If not, then we'll open it up to applications. Yes, Erin?
What sort of questions, things would we look at on an application?
Well, when they apply, we would have an interview process, just like we did the last time.
But what are we asking, what are we basing this on?
That, we had a uniform set of questions the last time that we asked in the meeting, so each person we talked to had the same questions from us. We would decide who we wanted to have sit in there for this. I would be one of the people. We could have 2 or 3. I think that's okay to have 3, isn't it?
If you have 3 board members, you would need to notice it as a meeting.
So
If
we'll
you
probably
have
stay at 2
two-
then.
I mean, you also have the opportunity, I mean, again, like I said before, you have complete discretion. I mean, I know there's communities that go through an application process and they actually have the application before the board or the council. And that, you know, so there's not a committee meeting. It is, people submit their applications and then they will come and appear before the board, before a meeting, and then everybody has a chance to ask them questions. And, you know, you don't have to do it that way. You can do it more on the committee level too if you want to. But as soon as you have 3 or more board members, then you have to notice it. And that's one of the reasons I think why other communities have chosen what you did in the past, which is to have 2, because it becomes, you know, one of the things you're always looking for is the reason why you want to have 7 is you want to be able to avoid quorum issues in the future. And so there sometimes is an urgency to get it done, and if you're not having to do it by your normal meeting schedule, that's one of the benefits, I think, of having just 2 board members. It goes a little bit more quickly. Ultimately, it all comes before you anyway. I'm sorry, I'm kind of throwing in another option too, which isn't probably helping you, but I'm just,
No, it's fine.
So are we looking at the 1-year or the 2-year thing? Is that already?
That's the next question. So I think, from my perspective, whoever's going to do this wants to do this for 2 years. It helps for continuity with the board. It's also gonna be very difficult and possibly confusing on an election ballot. To have one person that's running for a 1-year term and the other's for a 2-year term, I just think it'll be a little more confusing.
Right.
For what people will be doing. So I would recommend that we do a 2-year term to finish out her term. So,
Are you?
that's what I'm asking is, do I have to have their approval to do the process?
well,
Is that
I mean,
correct?
first of all, I think it would be good to get feedback on, do you want it to go through the rest of Trustee Springman's term? I mean, I think that that's probably the most reasonable thing to do. I think that, especially if you go through applications, you may actually get more people interested if they know they're gonna be on this for the full term. I don't think that you absolutely have to get a motion on the process. I do think it probably is valuable to have the board chime in, because ultimately, whatever, it is gonna be a recommendation from the village president, no matter what process is utilized, and then the board has to approve it. And if the full board isn't comfortable with the process, then that could necessarily impact votes on the back end. So to avoid issues on the back end, I think it's a good idea to get a lot of feedback, and you can either do it by consensus, or you could actually have a motion if you wanted to. But I would agree with what you said earlier, that I didn't necessarily hear a consensus at this point. Let me just throw out, you also could operate on parallel tracks. You could allow Chris to have some discussions with people, and you could also start the process of putting together whatever the questions would be for applicants. And in theory, you could have a situation where, yeah, you may go with the applications, but all of a sudden, 2 weeks from now, whatever the next board meeting is, if President Zellner comes to you and says, yes, we've started the application process, but hey, I have this particular candidate that I think would be the best candidate, you know, whether we do applications or not. If the board agrees with that, you know, you could short circuit the application process and go with whoever the recommendation is.
Sorry, what I was thinking. That's what I meant. Like, can you do both?
Okay, I'm okay with that.
I think the appointment should fulfill the whole 2-year term. Seems appropriate. I guess I would prefer that if you are reaching out to people, then you're kind of directing them towards towards applying, or kind of reaching out and encouraging versus just not selecting, but.
And I would agree with fulfilling the full term that Sue had, so I would agree with that.
Same here.
So to Brian's point then of putting the applications and starting the applications, where I'm still talking to people, we can start the application process, handing that in while I'm doing this. And if there's somebody that stands out that I want to recommend to you guys, that's gonna come at the next meeting.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we'll go through the whole interview process with the applications.
I endorse that.
Gary?
I agree.
Because you still ultimately have to vote on, if I recommend somebody to you, you still have to vote on that person. It's not like,
Yep.
it's not like.
Which is why I think it makes sense that you're having this discussion on the front end.
Correct.
How long has this process been in the past? How long has the seat been empty?
Less than 2 months, month and a half maybe.
It's generally not a long time.
If
think
we,
it
if we
goes-
coordinated a process, it was a month
Yeah,
and a half
it
or so.
went more quickly when Dr. Random was
Right.
appointed, than, I mean, just necessarily, because didn't go through the application process.
Would it be fair to ask that we have this at the August meeting? Not the July? July would be a pretty quick,
I'll be gone July 1st.
maybe it would be pretty quick too.
Yeah.
I don't want to draw it out, but I think
You
we
mean the
should
July
do this
15th
right.
meeting?
Or the August meeting.
I'm not following, I guess. If we have somebody that I can recommend.
Right. I'd rather do
Or
it.
if there's not that person, then we're starting the application process to get it done. I think we should try to get it done sooner than later.
Okay, I make a motion, we seek to do this at our July 15th
Can we
meeting.
explain what we're voting on, what process? Sorry.
Let him, he's gonna make his motion.
Okay.
He's gotta make that so we can then,
Well, I make a motion that we seek to fill this, to have an applicant or decide on the course of action that we would take on the July 15th meeting. Either you would have an applicant, or we would have the questions and et cetera to seek the applicants.
so.
Can I ask a question? So are you saying, Phil, that you're,
Go ahead.
can I ask?
Sure.
No, I mean, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Are you saying that you would want staff to have presented to you by the July 15th meeting some questions for applicants, or possibly a recommendation from President Zellner, so that you wouldn't actually publicize that you're seeking applications until that July 15th meeting?
No.
No.
Okay.
I guess I'd like to look at his applicant first and then go forward with the applications.
So staff can prepare, it sounds like Chris will do his work.
Phil, can I get you to withdraw your motion?
Sure. I cleaned it up at least.
All right, before staff tries to,
Well, and
I'm gonna make the motion
Sure.
that by July 1st, we have the applications all out. So for our July 15th meeting, we can have a recommendation done for that time.
Right.
For the seat or for the process?
For the seat.
The process is going to be, I'm either going to nominate somebody, appoint somebody that you're gonna have to vote on, or we're gonna have the applicants ready to go so we can interview them, so we can make a decision for July 15th. And it's for a 2-year term, or to complete Sue Springman's term. Shouldn't say 2 years, because it's technically not full 2 years right now. Start in July, it's not 2 years.
yeah, no, I understand what you're saying there. So are you saying that you would have, if you were gonna have a recommended candidate, that you would potentially act on that at the July 1st board meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
If not, we will, between that July 1st and 15th, if we don't have a board agree to it, or I don't have somebody, then we will have the interview process with the applicants, because we're gonna get the applicants in by then still.
By July 1st?
Correct. We wanna have that, so we can get that interview done, so we can make a decision for July 15th.
I wonder if that deters people from applying based on the fact that they don't know what the rest of that process is.
Yeah, I'm confused a little bit.
They may apply and it's useless. So I guess the two options I would see there is we either stretch that out and wait for your recommendation, and if
So you're saying
that
go up
doesn't
to
happen,
August 1st?
yeah, we'd have to go out
So
further.
you're saying, all right, if I don't have somebody there, then we're gonna open up the application that has to be in by July 15th, and then we would make our decision August 1st.
Yeah.
I'm open to that. I'm okay with
The
that.
other alternative I would see would be we open up applications right away. The people that you're interested in go through that same application process.
That's
and
how I
would
see
like
it.
that.
entire pool.
Even the people you recommend go through the application process.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that. I'm okay with that.
That keeps us moving pretty
And it
quickly.
evens it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No confusion.
Right.
If that's the desire of the board, staff can work with Chris to coordinate the process immediately.
I like that.
It's in you, and so basically you're posting, I'm using this term generically, posting for people to file applications for the vacant board position, almost starting whenever staff is able to coordinate that. And then you'll have, people will apply, you'll have to set a deadline presumably as to when you want people to apply. Once you get that, then it sounds like you're gonna use the same process that was used that ultimately led to Mr. Ballweg being recommended and then appointed to the position.
Is that reasonable?
That's my understanding of what you guys have
I like
said.
that.
Completely reasonable.
Could we, I guess, be updated or look at what we're asking people to fill out or before it goes out?
I think we'll probably have the same template we had, probably something very
Yeah,
similar.
I'm
Could I
thinking,
just-
it was like a one-pager, and
Yeah.
name, address, time in the community, reason for wanting to be on the board, professional experience that would lend it, or professional and personal experiences that lend to being a good board member, and community involvement. Prior community involvement. That's the basics of what the questionnaire looked like.
And I think that's very similar to the application for committees and things like
Generally.
that, so. yeah.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And you can send that out to the board members too, so they can see what it looks like ahead of time. Right?
Yeah, we can get that
It's
draft.
basically the same one we used last time, and
I guess I would like to see it before we.
Is that a process, I'm not trying to cause, I am a little more trouble. Is this something we should do like every time? I mean, that a opening happens?
I think it's gonna be at the discretion of every village president, how it's done, based on how it's written, correct?
I do think that that's true, and the reason I say that is, I mean, the process is the president, makes a recommendation, and then the board approves it, and that's why I think it is important to have buy-in from the village board on the front end, and I'm not suggesting this would ever happen with the village, but, in other communities, if the village president or the common council chair isn't approaching this the way that Chris has, you could get to the point where there's a lot of disagreement at the end. So I think it's good why you've had this conversation, but, yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like you're gonna effectively use the same process that you used when Sam was appointed.
Right.
And I would just caution you that when you do get the information from Todd or Caitlin regarding the information in the questionnaire, don't reply all to the email.
Nor should they ever.
Correct.
So, is the board comfortable with staff working with Chris to facilitate that? Certainly providing you with information, you can talk to us about your concerns if you have any. The other option would be to assemble the process and have it for you on July 1st. And then you say thumbs up to what you've seen collectively.
To a person or the process?
No, the process, that we actually wouldn't convene collecting applicants until after you approve the process, see the application form, which is similar to the committee form.
So what I'm hearing is the process is that we're going to have the questionnaire, we're gonna have it posted online, it'll be available for people here, they'll have access to it. We really just need to figure out a date for when we have to say, this is when they have to be in by. I think that's all we really have to do, because then we'll have the process of bringing people in for those that we select as a group.
Well, I guess that's another question for you on the process, is do you want,
Or is
sounds
it
like-
just me that's selecting from them? It's my discretion, I think, but I would prefer it be more than just me. I want them to have a say in it.
I think that's and so my understanding is in the, when the position that Sam filled, you had two members that had individual meetings with the applicants, and then those two members then reported to the village board, and as part of the reporting process, I'm guessing there was a recommendation. And that's a process that you can definitely follow here. The other process that, and I'm just throwing this out as a possibility. I mean, if you're gonna do what Todd was saying is, and essentially, and staff is going to post it after the meeting tonight, so sometime tomorrow, let's say, or the next day, and you set a deadline for, applications before the July 15th meeting, you could always even if you want all applicants to come in and interview before the village board, you can do it at a regularly scheduled meeting if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. It's a question of, it's just a procedural question. I will tell you though, I do think that that's gonna take longer, as opposed to the way that you approached it with Sam's position that Sam ultimately filled. That probably was a more efficient process.
So then it comes down to who is the second person for the interviews. Between you. Do you want me to pick? Or do you want to all say?
Don't ever vote.
And have a vote, or make a nomination of somebody?
I vote for Gary.
I'm gonna be gone though for
Oh,
that period through the 6th or,
So that's a bad nomination.
so I'm gonna be gone for not a good time.
well, Phil. He did the last time.
He did do the last time.
I would recommend Doc Random just because Phil did it last time, and you're up, Bill.
And he's
Gotta
copious free
find me,
time,
though.
right?
Okay,
As far as schedules, that's my problem.
which I respect
I know.
with that. So, you know what? I'm gonna recommend Joe to do this,
All right, let's vote.
if he's willing.
Right, good for us.
So, since I'll,
Because then he could pick who fits between us.
so so our process, is everybody wanna have that reviewed to them? What the
Yeah.
process is going to be then, moving forward? Okay, so we are going to take applications. The date we need to have those applications in by will be, I'm gonna say, if we're trying to get this by July 15th, I think July 15th. Well,
There's June.
we said August 1st is when we wanted to try to have this, but July 15th, they have to be in by then,
Yeah.
where we would then take the interviews in between there for Joe and I, and then Joe and I would have a collective recommendation to the board for August 1st,
5th.
5th.
Thank you. I was like, it's not the first, yeah.
Sorry, August 5th.
Are
Okay.
can we promote this on Waunakee and in the Tribune?
Yeah, it'll all get,
We'll blast it on all our usual communication channels.
Thank you.
so then at our August 5th meeting, I would ultimately be making the recommendation on who it is. We would all be voting on that. If we don't have a majority vote for anyone, then we have to go back to the drawing board to find someone else. Yes?
Can I ask you a question for you? It sounded like the last time that you went through this process, you had more applications than the people that you interviewed, and so I'm guessing that as part of that process, either you as the village president or you and Phil together kind of weeded that list down from, let's say, I'm just 10 to 4 or 10 to 5. Are you planning on is that also gonna be part of this process?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Chris's discretion of who's interviewing?
Chris and Joe.
Chris and Joe.
Okay.
We'll be doing that.
I like that.
Yes, we'll get them, we'll decide based on what we're all looking for, comments that I've made, comments that you've made, and we'll try to narrow it down to 4 or 5. If we have 4 or 5, we'll see how many we have, and go from there. Does everybody understand the process? Everybody good with that? Okay,
Yes.
so I made the motion for that process,
Second.
second by Bill Random. Do we have any other comments or questions?
I hope we are inclusive in this and encouraging people that might not think of running for office and or be represented in different ways on the board, so.
Agreed. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Joe, second by Aaron. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.